Trooper Cody with a World War II video, a Hitler video. I'm wearing cowboy gear. You might think I should have been in my World War I uniform or an army uniform. But what we're going to talk about with World War II, the lead up to World War II and Adolf Hitler. I'm wearing my cowboy gear because if you look at the academic side of the Old West, they generally say the period of the Old West went from 1865, when the Civil War ended and the push west started and the expansion into the Indian territories, and it was pretty much over by 1900. So it's perfectly right that I'm wearing clothing from that era, from the 1870s to 1900, for what I'm going to tell you. Because where are you watching this video? What country are you in? We're going to go back to the Middle Ages. So if we go back to the Middle Ages, we've got England and France, and these countries are setting themselves up, and they're coming out of the Dark Ages, and there are earls and dukes. And when England is setting itself up, they have serfs, and yes, there's the big landowners, but the people are allowed to have some, they're allowed to buy land, rent land, they can, to a degree, have a say in their lives, and this is coming out of the Dark Ages, 1,000 years ago. So as that time passes, we see more of democracy coming, more freedom, more people able to travel. Things are happening in France and are happening in England, and we move to Australia and there are people coming out to Australia, certainly America, then we have American independence, and people are becoming more aware of democracy and owning land and being their own bosses. For 1,000 years this develops from the Dark Ages. But you'll notice I haven't mentioned Germany, because while this progression is happening for generation after generation after generation, over centuries, what has happened in Germany is the country is basically split into 350 small provinces. That each one is independently ruled by a prince. It's its own little kingdom. That prince rules that little kingdom with an iron fist. The people that live there under that prince, they're not serfs that can rent property or make a living, go on holiday or have fun. They are virtually slaves. Tyranny, crippling discipline. There's no other way of putting it. They're virtually slaves. So while the rest of the civilized world is developing into democracies and America's independence and all this is happening for hundreds of years, Germany is a divided, isolated country of tyranny, cruelty and hardship, to the point where people are born thinking no different. They accept it because it's been like it for generations. We come all the way to 1871. You think of France by 1871, Australia by 1871, America, England by 1871. And what happens is this country that is still 350 separate little tyrannical provinces of browbeaten people, Otto von Bismarck comes on the scene. And he has a view of a united Germany. And he brings the whole country together as one and tells them that they can be one powerful country. 1871 this happens, when suddenly people go from being slaves to having freedom. Too much power at once because von Bismarck doesn't just leave it at uniting the country. He immediately has 3 wars. He has a war with Denmark. He has a war with Austria. He has a war with France. He wins every one of them. They get more land. They get more kudos. The people become overjoyed with the fact that now at long last they are a unified country. When I said to you earlier about the tyranny in that period of 1,000 years, there were also horrendous religious wars, poverty. At one stage they estimate that one religious war in that period killed 1/3 of the entire German population was wiped out during that time. So is it any wonder that when von Bismarck brings the country together in unity and prosperity, they become empowered with their own patriotism and unity. And then they have 3 successful wars. So von Bismarck has started what's called the Second Reich. And when he does that, the people that have joined together to become one nation at last, almost 1,000 years after other countries have done it, they have a lust for power, a craving for domination, and a complete contempt for democracy. That is why they were so sure they would win and so committed as a people. They lose World War I. They have tremendous loss of faith and loss of face when that happens. If that's not bad enough, the country's already decimated, it's broke, it's starving, and then the Treaty of Versailles brings in these devastatingly cruel and harsh punishments. And what does that mean? That means the country is ripe for somebody to save them. It is ripe for revenge, and therefore when a man comes along with a silly little moustache, he's seen as a saviour. And that is why the German people flocked to Hitler. And that is why, in a very short, brief video, if you like, why they became so committed to Hitler and why the terrible, terrible things were happening with old men and boys right at the end of the war. I've mentioned earlier the book The Forgotten Soldier. He is half French, half German. He's really honest in that book, and he talks about how he felt about Hitler and what Hitler was doing. He talks about it in a very positive way. And so we shouldn't say, ban that book, don't read that book, because it gives you a brilliant insight into the thinking of those people. I don't know if this video has made any sense whatsoever as to why the German people reacted to Hitler, but we'll give it a shot. Sure would love some feedback on that, because it probably would take a television series of 10 one-hour episodes to try and explain what I've just tried to do here in a few minutes. Let me know what you think. Make a comment, subscribe if you haven't. It's good night from him, and it's good night from me. Cheers.